Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the next session of Wednesdays with Wayne. Thank you for taking time out of your day. Look forward to spending an hour or so with you today talking about this constantly evolving, very quickly evolving real estate marketplace and the things that we need to be doing to make sure that we're on the forefront of where this business is and probably more importantly, where it's headed. And we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk specifically lead conversion and the way that the lead conversion game has changed over the last few years in real estate. And it has changed dramatically. I will tell you that. If you've been on Wednesdays with Wayne, we've talked a little bit about these various issues, but I want to give you some specific strategies today because from the chair that I sit in, things are really different. And I want to make sure that everyone that I engage with, that they understand the bigger playing field, if you will. A lot of this deals with consumer behavior. A lot of it deals with how we're becoming more and more transactional in everything that we do as consumers for every item that we buy. And how that is starting to very, very quickly, in my opinion, filter its way into the real estate business. And some changes that I think you guys need to be making or need to be doubling down on if you've already made some of the changes that we talk about. So with that opening, let's just dig in because I've got a lot of material to cover with you today. So bear with me. So the thing that I would tell you about real estate sales is this, that regardless of where you are, regardless if you're in a large market, small market, rural, metropolitan, what state, area of the country, it doesn't really matter. The issues of being a real estate agent are exactly the same across the board. And those issues are basically three. Number one is a sound financial model. I was just talking to someone today about coming down in October and doing a business planning session for them and really getting into the financial models. But making sure that you have a strong financial model and a strong lead generation and conversion model. Those are the three biggest issues of being a real estate agent. All right. So consistent lead generation is a big issue. The biggest issue, the one that we don't talk that much about in this industry, is consistent lead conversion. Here's the deal with lead conversion. If you've got tons of leads coming in, perhaps you're purchasing lots of your spend, you got a big Zillow spend or Trulia or all these various portals, right? If you're spending a lot of money in those endeavors, well, your conversion rates need to be good to make sure that you offset the spend and make sure that it's profitable. Now, when you got tons of leads coming in, the thing we have to make sure that we do is we're able to sort through those leads and find out who's good and who we need to get close to. Now, conversely, if you don't have a lot of leads right now, well, you can't afford to miss one. And so either way, lead conversion is the biggest issue in real estate. It's actually the biggest issue in business. Every business deals with these three components. Favorite quote, to become one of my favorite quotes over time. Colin Cowherd said, most people go through their whole life and they never get leverage, and that's really sad. But what's worse is when you have leverage and you don't use it. And I will tell you that if you're on this session today, if I am lucky enough to have the ability to engage with you, either as a broker client or as an agent for one of my broker clients, or perhaps in some of your cases today as an agent that's trying to figure this out. Maybe you're not even working with one of my clients yet. But here's the assumption that I'm going to make today for everybody that's on this webinar. You're here. You have leverage. My job, try to show you how to use it. Because if you're on this webinar, you're good at what you do. And sometimes we just need to look at what the low-hanging fruit is that we could be a little bit better at and completely change our conversion, i.e. completely change our income, i.e. completely change our life. So where are we and why? What's going on in real estate right now? Okay, I just feel the need to just spend a couple of minutes and just talk about where we are. Number one, we are at the end, theoretically, of the 9-year market run. Okay. And what I mean by that is we are at the end of this constant upward, actually very strong trajectory that we've been on for 9 years. We saw it ebb mid-year 2022 when the Fed started raising interest rates, right? So we're at the end of that market run. Does that mean we're at the end of the market? Absolutely not. I just talked to someone this morning, so they just had the biggest month in the history of their company, right? Last month, when other people are suffering and wondering what to do. And a lot of agents are in that mode right now. But the marketplace, as we knew it, ended. Doesn't mean that we're in a bad market, but it does mean there's some forces that are changing. The first thing that we got to realize is, where did all the cash go? I mean, if remember in 2021 and the first half of 22, everybody had cash and everybody was making cash offers. And then all of a sudden rates went up. And where did all the cash go? Right? I mean, if that many people really had true cash, interest rates are irrelevant. So what we knew was happening was people were making cash offers, but they were financing their way out on the back end. All right. And I would tell you something else that I thought of the other day. When you go back to these old markets that, 2021, first half of 22, people weren't buying homes. People were buying an interest rate. The quality of the house didn't really matter as much. The condition of the house didn't matter. What mattered was, I need to get into something so I can get out of rental or whatever, because rates are so low, it made things make a lot of sense. Now, we're now back to the number one rule of the U.S. economy, and I think becoming the worldwide economy, and that's that everything is payment driven. Everything that consumers tend to do in the U.S. is driven by a payment. That's why we're so sensitive to ebbs and flows in interest rates. And this single fact slowed real estate more than anything, okay? This single fact is, in my opinion, going to continue to keep inventory numbers very, very low, all right? I don't think you're going to see these inventory numbers change. I'll try to prove it to you here in the next few minutes. I think this is kind of laughable, actually. In January of 22, this was the projection from all the pundits in the real estate industry where interest rates were going to go. We were supposed to be just under 4%. I think we're just under 6% last time I looked. Rates actually did this. They doubled, okay? Now, that freaked a lot of people out. It freaked the consumer out. It freaked agents out. Does it mean that the marketplace is bad? No. I just saw some numbers yesterday that March of 2023 was actually a 6.3% increase nationally over the average sales price of March of 22. So we still have prices climbing. We have less inventory now. We still have a massive seller's market. The only change is sellers have to do the proper things. I would contend to you that the marketplace that you are in right now, that you're feeling, is what I'm going to call the new normal. I don't think you're going to see inventory numbers go up. Now, I did see, my daughter sent me an article last night that said, from Realtor.com, that actually said that this summer prices may plunge. And that's a very catchy word to get you to click on the article and open it. Prices are not going to plunge. Inventory numbers are not going to increase. The average consumer in the United States lives in their home now 13 and a half years. That's as of year-end 2022. That number is going to do nothing but go up if you really stop and analyze some of this. So many people refied their houses at 2.5% to 3%, okay? They're probably not going to jump back into the market unless they have a job transfer, a divorce, they have more children, their children all move out, which are basically the traditional ways that people did this. So what I'm going to tell you today is, buckle up. All the time I hear, brokers saying that their agents are saying, well, I'm waiting for the marketplace to turn. Guys, it's not going to turn. This is the marketplace you're going to have for a while. You're going to have limited inventories. You're going to have buyers fighting still. We're still seeing bidding wars. We're just not seeing bidding wars right now on every piece of property. We're only seeing bidding wars on the good properties. And this is going to continue for quite a while, in my opinion. There's a bigger issue going on. The bigger issue is this, and this is what I really want you guys to understand and start putting strategies in place. The biggest change in the last 5 years is that while real estate is local, what is driving consumer behavior is no longer local. All right? And this is why lead conversion becomes such a huge issue. We've talked around about this in various sessions that we've done about how you have to knock my socks off now the first time I meet you. All right? While real estate is local, the pattern of the consumer today as it relates to real estate is starting to look more and more like every other product that we purchase. All right? And what I mean by that is, if you have been doing this quite a while, story will resonate with you. If you haven't been doing it a long time, it won't. But there's a walk and talk to how consumers buy real estate. Bottom line is, if a consumer decides today they need to sell a house and buy a house, here's the way they used to do it. Well, I'd call my agent that I dealt with, given that I could remember my agent's name and that they'd stayed in contact with me. We'll talk about that in a bit. But if I couldn't remember my agent's name, or it wasn't that great of an experience, I would ask my friends, okay, and get the name of their agent, right, if they could remember their agent. Now, if the average consumer's living in their house 13 and a half years now, and 83% of real estate agents statistically don't make it 5 years, in the amount of time I've been living in my home, there's been basically 2 generations of real estate agents that have come in and left while I've still been living in my home. So the odds are that I'm not going to be able to call my agent again because they're really not going to be there. There's also a good chance that my friend doesn't have an agent anymore that's in the business. So what we used to do, what the public used to do, and this is, to me, a key point in today's environment, they would call what we always called a name realtor. You'd call one of the names in town. Well, and you knew who the names were because of print advertising. You'd look through the newspaper or the Homes magazines or the publications, and you'd look to see who the players were, the guys with the biggest ads. They don't do that. People don't do that anymore. Here's the change. The first 2 levers are still in place. If I can remember my agent's name and they did a good job, I'll call them back. If I can't, I'll call my friend and see if they know someone. But if I strike out on the first 2, here's the new move. On the seller side, Google. People are now Googling real estate agents in name your city. They're checking reviews. And those are the people that on the listing side they're now trying to call. On the buyer side, they're going to Zillow first, guys. They are. Absent a relationship with a real estate agent, they're going to Zillow. They're going to Zillow before they go to open houses. This is the change that I've seen happen, all right? So what's happening is it's being driven by third parties. Now, that creates an opportunity for us if we get in there and do the right things. Overall, the market for virtually every product in the United States has changed faster than the industries have changed, okay? This happens every day. You run into this every day. We scroll a lot on our telephones, all right? Whether it's Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, you name it, we scroll. And if it doesn't catch my attention early, I will simply scroll on to someone else. We are becoming a very transactional society. I just talked to a gentleman this morning who is, I do some work with an individual and I interview people before he brings them onto his team. And this guy, I asked this guy about his experience with real estate agents. And he basically said exactly what I've known the public feels. He's like, you know, it was always amazing to me how little real estate agents really knew about the questions that I had. So it was like, who's going to show me the house? So we've become very transactional. The third parties, right? They've effectively injected themselves into this market. But I want to tell you a quick story to show you. This happened to me this week. I have a pair of shoes that I wear in the spring and summer with no socks. They're a pair of loafers, and they're getting pretty worn out. So I decided that I was going to buy a new pair of shoes. And so I went online to Zappos because I know Zappos carries all different kinds of shoes, right? Sitting at my desk Monday morning, I go to Zappos. I find the shoes. I order a pair of them. And then lo and behold, I checked out through Amazon, which I did not know Amazon had a relationship with Zappos. But they didn't have both colors of the shoes. So only then did I go to the website of the shoe manufacturer. Now they had them, and I bought the second pair of shoes from the shoe manufacturer. But what didn't I do? I didn't get in my car and go to a store and feel the need to use the traditional methods. And so I got to thinking about this, and I thought, golly, Zappos is the Zillow of shoes. And I think what we're starting to see is like in every industry, there's these things happening. And it's to the demise of the small business person, it's to the demise of the real estate agent. So the game has massively changed. Online reviews, guys, are now carrying equal or greater weight than personal referrals. I'm seeing this play out all the time. I was in New Orleans 2 weeks ago, and we were talking about this concept, and one of the agents came up to me at the break, and he said, I just had exactly what you were talking about happen to me. He said he had a gentleman call him and say, I would like to have coffee with you and talk about hiring you as my real estate agent. When they went to have coffee, the agent asked the gentleman, he said, how did you get my name? He said, honestly, I Googled real estate agents in where this agent was from. Your name popped up. I read all of your reviews. You look like my kind of guy. I had someone in New Hampshire tell me exactly the same thing had happened to them. This is now where the consumer is going, absent personal referrals. All right? It's very transactional now. And I'm just starting to see the beginnings of this. And I want to guard you guys. I want you to do two things today. When you get that kind of a lead, I want you to crush it. But most importantly, we've got to really double down on keeping our people from going to those portals, keeping them from going to that third place. Because what I always used to tell agents was this: either it's referral or it's either direct referral to you, they've dealt with you before, or it's a friend. And then other than that, they're going to call a name. So until you're a name, you got to make efforts to become a name in real estate. Well, now you have to do some efforts in this online world. Okay, online reviews are carrying equal to or greater weight than personal referrals are. The decision everybody's going to have to make in the near future is whether they're going to be discounted or they're going to provide a boutique experience. Because I'm telling you right now, this, and I apologize for sounding relatively negative and all, scary. This is where I see this industry heading. You're going to have your discount agents who don't have the ability to up their game, and you're going to have the people that provide an unbelievable trusted advisor boutique experience. They're both very viable business models. Question that we all need to have, or the answer that y'all need to figure out, is which way you're going to go. Because tech is doing to this industry what we've always refused to do for ourselves as a giant trade group, and that's raise professionalism. I've been sharing with you, I think, some of the numbers. There's been a 75,000 drop in the membership of NAR in December, January, and February. 75,000 agents exited the business as expected. Guess what happened in March? The numbers went back up. There was a net gain of real estate agents last month. Not a large gain, 1,000 people nationwide, not very many, right? I admit, but still, there are more realtors today than there was on March the 5th. All right, because the industry is not going to do this. The industry is going to continue to bring people in. What I want to talk to you about is, what are those key points that we're going to put in place in your businesses, that you're going to put in place in your business, to make sure that as this market evolves, you're ready for it. Because Warren Buffett said, you only learn who's been swimming naked when the tide goes out. Well, the tide really hasn't gone out, but it's changed, right? There's turmoil in the water. And yet, huge opportunity. There's massive opportunity for the people that want to get in there and get after it. And that's if you leverage what I call the 3 kinds of time. You've heard me talk about this before, but it's a key issue. So number 1 is playtime. Now, every moment of every day in our lives, we are operating in one of 3 kinds of time. And there's really no other kind of time other than these 3, right? So there's playtime. That's us doing the things we want to do. It's us traveling, eating in fine restaurant, whatever your thing is, right? And we want high quality, high quantity playtime. Now, the quality and quantity of the playtime is directly proportionate to the quality of your pay time, right? The effectiveness of you in the field, if you're very, very effective in the field, that allows you to have more free time. And if you're effective in the field, you're being highly paid, and that allows you to go do the things that you want to do. At the extreme of this, or the easiest example of this to me, is the professional athlete. Professional athlete has very, very high quality pay time, and then they get to go play for 6 months or whatever it is in the off season. But the thing that I want to make sure we're talking about a lot is the last one, and that's prep time. And that's getting better. That's getting better with materials. That's getting better with processes, because this marketplace that we are in, and for the foreseeable future, maybe forever, is going to require a more professional real estate agent than it ever has. We've got to spend time in prep. We've got to spend exactly the same proportional time as the elite athlete does. They spend a tremendous amount of time practicing, getting better. It's something that we've never really done as an industry. And the industry, again, will never do it. But as individuals in the industry, you can do it. Because there's 3 types of real estate agents. Number 1 is the true pro. Focused on 2 or 3 of the possible ways of generating business. They know every subtle nuance of what they're doing, and they're incredibly consistent at conversion. I would refer to this as the true pro maximizes their low-hanging fruit. There's a lot of different ways for you to generate business in real estate, but the true pro maximizes 2 or 3 of them. And they ignore everything else. Then you have the tweener. They dabble in a bunch of stuff. They do a little of this and a little of that. And they work a lot of hours. And they're not really sure exactly where their business is coming from, and they're afraid to stop. So they run around, and if we can really get behind the curtain, we can say, you're doing all these things, but 80% of your business is coming from these 2 or 3. And it's that way every single solitary time. And then lastly, you have the rookie. The people that get into the business, like, I just, I'll go try everything. And what I want to drive home to you today is this. Turning pro is a mindset. It's nothing more, nothing less than a mindset. It is the ability to say no to certain things. It is the ability to double down and know every subtle nuance of what drives your business. This has nothing to do with how long someone has been in the industry. It has nothing to do with the production level of people. There are a lot of people that do well monetarily. They get plaques, if you will. They get awards, but they're still tweeners. Or in some cases, they're still rookies, because the pro also has a high quality of life. And that's been my quest for 20 plus years in this deal, is I want to try to show people the strategies to live the life that they want to live, because your business truly is supposed to support your life, not be your life. Being professional and providing strategy is always important, but it doesn't always matter. And it hasn't mattered for the last probably 3 years in real estate, and now it matters. And I'm going to tell you, moving forward, it's going to matter more than ever before. So there's the mirror test. I know I've talked to you about this, but those of you that haven't been on with me before, let me talk about this real quick. We all look in a mirror every morning. And when you look in a mirror tomorrow morning, because you will, we all do, I want you to stop and stare at yourself for a second and ask yourself, are you really good at this? And if you are really, really good at this, if you're really good at selling property, if you're really good at satisfying your clients' needs, then isn't this just a numbers game? And isn't it just about you getting in front of more people? Isn't it a shame that there are people out there dealing with real estate agents that aren't really great at this? That's kind of sad. When if they knew how good you were, they would deal with you because you could handle all of their issues. So at some point, if you look in the mirror and go, I'm really good at this, it's just a numbers game. Now, if you look in the mirror and you go, I'm kind of good, I'm sort of good, sometimes I'm good, then that's where our work needs to be, i.e. that's the prep time, right? Because what the public is basically saying to us now in small business in general is, if I can't have a great customer experience with you, I'll go transactional. I'll go online. I'll click around on Amazon. I'll go to Zappos, whatever, right? That's the key to this right now. But here's why it matters, just really, really quickly. Median tenure of real estate agents is 8 years. That means the median real estate agent has never been through any kind of a slowing type market. 70% of real estate agents are gone in their first 18 months. 83% nationally are gone within 5 years. Now, here's why that matters as it relates to the consumer. Again, remember, the consumer now lives in their house an average of 13 and a half years. I see that will continue to trend up because of all the refis that went on in the low interest rate days. People are just not going to move. The average homeowner is 13 and a half years. Number of agents contacted before selecting one to assist with the sale of a home, 80% of the time, consumers talk to one real estate agent. Question is, are you going to be that real estate agent? They're either going to be referred to you. You've either dealt with them before, they're referred to you, or they're Googling. Would the seller use their agent again? 85% of the time, absolutely, I would use my agent again, but only 36%, only 27% of the time do they actually use their agent again. But 36% of the time, they're referred. So 63% of the time, they've either dealt with the agent before, or they're referred to an agent, or they know an agent, right? This is huge. And the other percentage of the time, the shift is, it appears that the public is now using Google on the listing side, not the buyer side. Buyers, 42% of the time, right? Referred by or is a friend, neighbor, or relative of the agent. 11% of the time they use the agent before. Look at first-time home buyers. 52% of the time, first-time home buyers are referred or are a friend of the real estate agent. And then lastly, only 23% of the time do members of NAR claim that their business comes from referral. So we have this big dispersion, this gap, if you will, between where the consumers are and where the real estate industry is. They want to use us again, but they don't. Statistically, they don't. Well, that's on us as an industry. So here's the strategies I want to lay out for you today. They're very specific. They're things that you're probably already in some of these arenas, but I want you to enhance your skill set and your materials. The first thing you got to do is you got to have a model, and you got to trust the model. You got to trust the work. An idea is not a model. Hold the model accountable for results. Here's what I mean. Every time we take action on an idea, one of two things happens. They end up in the same spot every time, but one of two things always happens. You get an idea, and you don't model it out, and you just run with it, right? This could be something you saw at a seminar. It's like, oh, that makes sense. I'll go buy that. It'll be $19.99 a month subscription, and I may never look at it again or whatever. But we take action on an idea, and it works. It starts out and it works very, very, very well. And then it stops working as well as it did in the beginning, and we quit. Or you take action on an idea and it doesn't work early, so you quit and you move on to the next thing, right? So in either scenario, if you're taking action on ideas, this is what tweeners do. The tweener real estate agent, the rookie agent, they take action on a lot of ideas. They see someone in a cubicle next to them, or they heard about somebody doing something. I'll go try that, right? That's not a model, guys. We have to get the modeling habit as small business people. All right? You have to model things out. You have to get into conversion rates, expected conversion rates, and really work the math out of these things. And then know what the time frame is and what you can expect, and then continue to implement the model. Understand your value in today's market is interpretation of the information the consumer already has. Our value is no longer information. That is a huge change for those of us who have been doing this for a long time. We used to have all the information. Now the consumer has the information. Our job is to help navigate them through it. Clients aren't coming to you for information. They're coming to you for strategy and communication. We talked about this in the listing classes. We will talk about them in the buyer agency presentation classes that we're going to do up next. I'll tell you about that in a little bit. John Naisbitt in the book Megatrend said, we're drowning in information, but we're starved for knowledge. Our value proposition today as realtors to bring knowledge to the table. It's not to bring information to the table. It's knowledge. It's interpretation. There's 3 buckets of business for everyone. Number 1 is active prospecting. That's you actively going out and talking to people you do not know. Every business in the land operates with 1, 2, or 3 of these buckets in play. The second one is marketing, and that has now moved from print and billboards and TV and all this stuff. That now is massively online. And the third piece is referral. So if we're going to have a business that is really, really operating, we're going to be probably operating at some level, maybe in all 3 of these. If we're not operating in the 3 big buckets, we're going to be crushing the 1 or 2 that we're doing. And I want to give you some strategies for that. So the big thing that you have to be able to do in today's environment is you've got to differentiate yourself. Now, there's 3 issues with differentiation. Number 1 is how good is your initial conversation? That's scripts and dialogues. How do you differentiate yourself from the other agents that I've talked to? Right? That's about your ability to do the prep work and to role play. And I'm going to give you a real world example that happened to me on Saturday. There was a building in my town that I was heartbroken that it sold, and I didn't know that it was going to be up for sale. You know, shame on me. And I always said that if it ever came back on the market, I would try to buy it. Lo and behold, I drove by Saturday, and there was an available sign in front of it. Okay, so I immediately pulled out my cell phone and I called the agent's number that was on the sign. And it rang, and it rang, and it rang, and it rang, and the agent didn't answer. So now, being an old school real estate guy, I did the second thing. I called the real estate office, right? And I got the receptionist. I got the receptionist, and I said, I'd like some information on a piece of property that I saw. And she said, do you have the agent's name? You should just call them. And I said, well, I did. They didn't answer. Can someone give me the information about this piece of property? And she said, well, maybe you ought to text them. A lot of times agents would rather you text them than call them. I swear to you, this conversation took place on Saturday morning. And I said, now, isn't there someone there that can just tell me the information about this piece of property? Obviously, I'm looking for a floor agent, right? And she said, well, yes, we have someone. And I said, could you transfer me to them? So she did. And then they didn't pick up the phone. I got tired of waiting, and I hung up. Then I turned around and texted the real estate agent, and they replied to me. And we had a quick little conversation via text. The only reason I bring that up is this. As a consumer, it's incredibly frustrating. And we used to operate with a concept called a bat phone, right? Which was a separate cell phone. And this experience that I went through on Saturday kind of drove home that point to me again. maybe we ought to think about going back to a bat phone, right? And that was because of Batman in the Batcave. But when the phone rang, he knew he was ready to get into action. What if you had a separate cell phone that every time it rang, you knew it was a lead? Would you answer it? Because I think we've evolved as consumers now to where if we look at our phone and we don't see a name tied to the number, we don't answer. And then we have potentially missed out on a lead that we could have converted, right? So the initial conversation is very, very important. Number two, the materials that you have are crucial. The materials that you have are crucial. I'm going to hold up a couple of things here. This is a client of mine who's just, in my opinion, absolutely crushed this. I hope you can see these. I hope I'm holding them up properly. The seller's guide and the buyer's guide. These things are unbelievable what she's been able to put together. This is the same template, okay, just to give you an idea. It's hard for me to show this to you, but this is the same template as if you were in the listing presentation classes and we talked about the pre-listing packet. That's the guts of this, but she has made these things look so incredibly cool that if you get this, if you receive this, you'll be like, I think I need to work with this person that's incredibly professional. So your materials are incredibly important. And then third, how you follow up. The initial conversation is crucial in active prospecting and any kind of online lead, meaning any kind of lead that they didn't already know you, like you, and want to deal with you. Now, the bad news is we got to outsmart all the other agents that these people might be calling. And the good news is it's not that tough. It's exactly like what I just went through this last Saturday. That really is the average customer experience. There's some things that I want you to do every time you get one of these incoming calls. Number one, answer the phone when it rings, and answer the phone with your name and your company name. All right. I know it sounds simple. You would not believe the number of agents who do not do this. All right. So number one, answer your phone when it rings with your name and company name. It's easier for the consumer. It differentiates you immediately within about a second and a half. Number two, avoid long, awkward silences. And we hear this a lot on Zillow calls. Zillow calls are incredibly confusing for the consumer. All right. They think they're calling the listing agent. Some of them actually thank Alex, who is actually AI, for making the transfer. And then we have these awkward silences as the agent they actually got is trying to find out the information. So avoid long, awkward silences. Master the concept of answer, ask. When someone asks you a question, answer it, but then train yourself. And the only way, guys, that we can get here is practice. Train yourself to follow up with a question of your own. That's what I mean by answer, ask. Understand that there's a give and take to every one of these conversations, okay? Understand that you're not the only realtor that these people have contacted. Understand that if you mishandle this initial conversation, they will hang up and they will call someone else, okay? I've heard people say, you know, Wayne, the quality of leads is not as high as it used to be. Yeah, they're not laydowns anymore. I mean, some of these things that were going on in 21 and the first half of 22, a 12-year-old could have sold houses to these people. And we're not there. Now we have to be more on our game. We have to be more professional. Don't lead with, are you working with an agent? It is the go-to thing that a lot of agents start the conversation with. There's a time to ask that, but it's farther on in the conversation. Don't lead with it. Don't lead with, are you pre-approved? In fact, never say, are you pre-approved? Get that out of your vernacular. Say, by the way, when you purchase, will you be paying cash or getting a loan? It's the same question. It's just said in a different way. Promise you, it'll differentiate you. Understand your value again. 4-step qualification process. Do they have a desire to buy or sell? Not everyone that contacts you does. Sometimes people are just being nosy. Second part, do they have the ability to? Now, this does mean, are you paying cash or getting a loan? Or do you have something that has to sell before you could be able to buy something, right? Thirdly, would you like some help with the process? Fourth, could I interview for the position? If we can adopt the mindset of every time we have a contact with someone, I'm really just asking for an interview. Would you just let me talk to you before you go hire someone else? If we have that mindset, the world gets a lot better. It just changes the whole dynamic of everything. If you receive 4 yeses, we now have a lead. If you don't receive 4 yeses, it's not a lead, guys. But the only way we can confidently know this is if we take people through a very tight questioning process, a very polite questioning process. But if we get 4 yeses, book an appointment, because now we can go to the next level with people. And the key to this is you're going to need buyer and listing questionnaires. All right, we're going to send them to you. It says, free guide. You can go to the website if you don't want to wait till Friday to get these. WayneFrederick.com, click on free guides. You can download them. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to do exactly what we've done with this. It's laminated. I know it's old school. Call me crazy. It's crib sheet questions. It's questions that will help you avoid the long silences, right? Just ask any question that's on here. All right? This will differentiate you. Guys, I'm evangelical about this today. I see where I believe this is heading. And absent an unbelievable customer experience from the get-go, I will go transactional. As a guy that sells shoes at Dillard's that I used to buy shoes from, I've known him since high school. But he's a nice guy, but it's transaction. It's easier to go on Zappos yesterday. This is finally starting to get its fingers into the real estate industry, right? So print these off, use buyer and listing questionnaires. That way you're prepared. Make sure that you have the proper materials in place. We want to have a great initial conversation with someone. I would contend the next step is a video, right? Then the next step, and the video could just be, hey, I just wanted you to put a name with a face, shoot a couple of stock videos, put them in your phone and text them to the people after the conversation. Just wanted you to be able to put a name with a face, look forward to the next level of possibly being able to work with you. And then we get into the material side of things. I'm going to tell you that in today's environment, you've got to start sending materials to these people. I would contend that you overnight them to their house. Then you follow up with those materials that you sent. We've now acquired a meeting. We now have a consultation with them, which ends in an agreement. We're going to talk buyer agency over the next few weeks. I'm going to tell you in a little bit my take on the whole, I think it's Moeller is how you say the name, lawsuit that now was granted class action status last week, and where that's headed and why this is so important. And ultimately, we would get a contract with these people. Well, what materials do we need to be sending them? Number one is a pre-listing packet. So let me walk you down a little bit of a trail. I engage with you at some level. Perhaps I call you off of a sign. It's in an open house. Maybe it's a referral. Maybe I Googled you. I talk to you on the phone, and I have this conversation I quite honestly didn't expect to have. It was a really great conversation. And then the next day at my house, I get a FedEx package or a UPS overnight, and it contains this, right? Pre-listing packet and a buyer packet, depending on how that conversation was. And then there's a video card. I think your stock goes up. I think you have my attention as a consumer. I think you provided me something early on I did not expect. Now, the bottom line is you're not going to want to do this with everybody because it's expensive to do this, right? I mean, these packets are, $7, $8 a piece. Video cards, $20. Now I'm at, $30, $35 plus overnight. You might be spending $50. You would only want to do this with somebody that you'd had a fabulous conversation with. And that's why at the end of the day, I mean, I had some people a couple of weeks ago, excuse me, the old school guys, the more high tech around us, this is another quote from Naisbitt, the more the need for human touch. The more this thing becomes transactional, the only way we've got of differentiating ourselves is to have fabulous conversations with people and fortify that. So maybe I get a pre-listing packet, I get a buyer packet, I get a video card, looks something like this.
Hi, Tom. Wayne Frederick here. Thank you so much for agreeing to meet with me next week. Listen, we've sent this packet to you. It gives you some information about our company, tells you a little bit more about us and the way that we work. We'll dig into the details when we get together next week, but I just wanted to let you know how excited I am that you're taking time out of your day to meet with me. So have a great week. I'll see you next week, and have a good day. Bye-bye.
And all of a sudden your stock will go way up, right? Now, you're not going to want to spend that level of money unless you know it's someone that is a good potential client. And that's all about that initial conversation we have. This is where conversion is today, guys, because we want to invoke the law of reciprocity, which simply says, if I give you something, you're more likely to give me something back. So once the meeting is set, overnight a pre-meeting packet to their house, right? Handwritten note, video card, the appropriate packet. Then we're going to follow up from that meeting. Then we're going to try to book an appointment. Then we're going to crush whichever presentation it is. They're going to want to deal with us, and we're going to go out and continually generate business. Told you about video cards, guys. You need to embrace video at every level. Video is a thing. It's sticky. It works. I know it is intimidating. Please embrace video. Okay. If you're not going to embrace video, right, then you're just going to have to be that much better at your printed materials. Either way is going to work. I would tell you to do both, because I think in this environment that we're in, and it's going to be the environment moving forward, you got to crush this thing at every level. So bucket number 3 is referral-based business. Okay. So we've got the active prospecting piece, which we're going to talk about that in a few weeks. How do you inject yourself into the marketplace, right? We talked about when the online lead comes in or someone contacts you and the materials that you're going to need. You're going to need the same materials if you're doing active prospecting, whether it's expireds, FSBOs, whether it's leveraging your buyer. We'll talk about that in a couple of weeks. I really want to talk to you about this piece, and that's what I call the line in the sand, and that's referral-based business. I know as you sit here today, the vast majority of your business is by referral. I know it is. I travel all over the country. I ask the same questions every time, whether it was 350 people at the RE/MAX R4 convention in Vegas a few weeks ago, whether it was the 75 people in New Orleans 2 weeks ago, whether it's up the East Coast next month. I'm going to ask everyone the same set of questions. I know where everybody's business is coming from. What I also know is we're not maximizing the play. There's more business to be had. All right. So we're going to talk about referral-based business. There's 2 issues that deal with this. It's the size of databases and having more vibrant engagement with people. This is what is going to make them always refer you, never going out to one of the portals, be they Google, be they Zillow, Trulia, Ideal Agent, Opcity, you name it, right? The only reason any of these third parties that we grouse about so much in this business got any traction at all was because as an industry, we haven't done this. We haven't stayed in massive flow with our people. It's a small business issue. I've just discovered small business people in general don't do this. But it allows the third parties to get between you. It happened in the shoe business, Zappos. It's happened in retail sales with Amazon. It's happening in the real estate business right now, right? If I get transferred tomorrow out of Springfield, Missouri, and I get transferred to, wherever, and I don't know a real estate agent, what am I going to do? I'm going to Google real estate agents in Springfield, Missouri. I will guarantee you that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to read their reviews. And then I'm going to go, well, I gotta go find something in this town I'm moving to. Oh, there's that Zillow thing. I guess I'll go on there and see what it is. And yet, because I ask these questions of people all the time, Most people cannot tell me who their real estate agent was, even if they did a great job. This is a small business issue, and I want you guys to shore it up. I really, really do. The easiest business model of all is be good, be nice, and stay in touch. If you're really good at what you do, you're really nice to everyone that you talk to, and you stay in touch with people, your business will scale. It has to. You're good to deal with. You know what you're doing. You're nice. And I don't forget about you. Boy, you take one of these three things out of the equation, folks, your business starts going like this, right? And for the vast majority of our industry, we got the first two down. It's the third one that messes us up. And I'm gonna tell you that I think you've got to shore it up. Here's the model. So do your own math. Take the number of people that you have in your network, in your database, in your sphere of influence, multiply it by 5, and take that number times 5%. That's the number of transactions you should be doing a year by referral only, either repeat or referral. Okay? I go down this road every time I speak in front of a group of real estate agents. I always say, how do you drive your business? Raise your hand if you drive your business mostly by referral. Virtually every hand in the room goes up. I have people do this math. If you're going to see me live, if you're going to be on the East Coast where I'm going to be, and you see me live, we're going to have the same conversation again. I have people write down the number of people in their network, multiply it by 5, and then 5%. And then I always say, raise your hand if you're doing that many transactions by referral. Whether it was 350 people in a session at R4 in Vegas, whether it was 70 people in New Orleans last week, whether it was 350 people in Boston toward the end of the year last year. Not one hand went up. Not one time. And yet that's what I know is the number of projected transactions that could come strictly by referral. And it's not that people aren't good at what they do, and it's not that they're not being nice. It's that we're not staying in touch. So the dilemma is we get it intellectually. I hear this from people all the time. I need to be better there. I need to be better there. But we don't have it behaviorally. We're not blocking off the time to really do what we need to be doing. And here's what I think is the reason. For those of us that have been doing this for a long time, and I'll define a long time as 15 plus years. You didn't have to have a great, unbelievable past client system to still generate tremendous amounts of money from past clients. And I just see the playing field. I'm seeing around the corner. You're going to have to do more than you've ever had to do to maintain your people because they're going to go online on you. Online is so loud now. All right? So here's the action items. Number one, I'm a huge fan, if you're a RE/MAX agent, I'm a huge fan of the RE/MAX First app. It does work. There's no doubt about it. It does work. You should have the First app. There's some setup that you have to go through, and that's where agents check out. I know y'all don't like routine, mundane tasks. That's why you chose real estate. That's why you chose sales. You don't like doing the same repetitious things over and over and over again. But explore the RE/MAX First app. It's a huge product. Number two, subscribe to Keeping Current Matters. Because if you're going to upgrade the number of contacts to your people, you're going to have really cool material to send them. I'm a huge fan of Steve Harney's organization, keepingcurrentmatters.com. Check it out. Number three, create a closed Facebook group for your past clients and referral sources if you haven't already. This is huge. I'll show you a couple of examples in a second. And lastly, up your annual sphere of influence contacts, and the target is 36 times a year, and I know that's a lot. And I know if you're in a group setting right now, you're looking at each other going, that guy's crazy. I don't want to bug people. I don't want to be bothersome. Well, if you do this properly, they've raised their hand to you and said they're your guys. So it's not going to be creepy, and you're not going to over-communicate to them. If your database, if you want to drive this thing strictly by referral, well, let's grow our databases then. I want you to leverage social media. Okay? Identify the Facebook, Instagram, whatever, friends and followers you have that are not already in your SOI, but you feel could be referral sources. And let's see if we can get them to take a couple of steps towards you. Direct message them this. You know, hey, Kathy, I was wondering if you have a realtor you use or would refer business to. If not, would you consider using me? Direct messages tend to work better because people tend to respond to a direct message because they know that you know that they've opened it. But if they answer in the affirmative, then send them this. Great, could you send me your email address and home address? I got some great events coming up this year. Yes, I'm going to tell you in a second, you need to start doing more events than you've ever done for your people. I'm going to have some great events coming up this year for my clients, and I want to make sure you get invited as well. If they give you the information, they've now raised their hand twice, or they've taken 2 steps towards you, enroll them into your database, enroll them into your process. The goal is to become the hub of the wheel for these people and all of their real estate information. And the closed Facebook group is the easiest way to leverage this. I'm going to give you a case study. Some of you have seen this before. This is a client of mine. This is Brian Woodward's office in Yukon, Oklahoma, which is basically southwest Oklahoma City. 36 touches a year is the model. How many people in your network? Times 5, times 5%. That's the target number of closed transactions strictly by referral, nothing else. This group has 975 people in their world, in their universe. These are people that have raised their hand and they've said, I know you, I like you, yes, I would refer business to you or I would use you again. You take that number times 5 is 4,875. You take that times 5%. That tells us that from a modeling standpoint, they should have done 243 transactions last year by referral. They did 230. That's 94.7% efficiency. If I'm ever in a session with these guys, as they were in my session in Vegas, they'll raise their hand because they're operating within the model. It works. It is the line in the sand for small business people. The top agent had 137% efficiency. He did 41 transactions from 120 people. His whole universe was 120 people, 41 transactions. If you were there were 8 agents that had been in this operation doing this for 2 years. From 2020 to 2021, those 8 agents went from 107 transactions to 172 transactions by referral. That's 21 and a half transactions per person strictly by referral. And you can say, well, yeah, but that was a hot market, Wayne, you know, golly, everything was going on. Well, okay, what about 21 to 22? It went up another 15%. So these 8 agents almost doubled the number of transactions strictly by referral, simply by shoring up the third leg of the stool, which was staying in contact with people. The way they do it is with client events. They do 4 client events a year. They do 1 a quarter, and there's touches just around the events. There's a video announcement that gets sent out to everyone. There's a phone call follow-up. There's an Evite. There's a postcard. Then they have the event, and they do the events together. They teamify around the event. Then there's a thanks for coming video that's sent out to everyone. And then every month, there's a postcard that goes out, just a standard touch of a postcard, okay? You know, Buffini talks a lot about popping by, which I think is a great program. The problem is trying to scale something like that. It's easier for these people to come to you. And if you'll teamify around this issue and share costs and get the touches up to 36 times, statistically, I've just shown you the numbers of what is right there at your fingertips the low-hanging fruit that is crucial that we leverage this in today's world. Because again, absent relationship, as a consumer, I'll go transactional. And it's becoming very easy for me to, from my office, click, 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 boom, boom, delivered tomorrow. We have changed as consumers. I used to do this. I think everybody probably did. I would go to the stores, and if I couldn't find it, I'm like, well, I'll check Amazon. Now I go to Amazon first. Start a closed Facebook. If you don't do anything else that we talked about today, if you don't upgrade your buyer packets, if you don't, get video cards and all that, start a closed Facebook group for your people. Please start a closed Facebook group for your people. It's the easiest way for you to stay in touch with them. By the way, the gentleman who had the highest from that office, here he is, Ryan Lerma, he had the highest efficiency rate of anyone. He has a closed Facebook group. I'm pretty confident there's a direct connection there, okay? So every time you do a transaction with Ryan, he enrolls you into the closed Facebook group that he has called Lerma's Click, all right? And he every time he does a transaction, join me in welcoming our newest members. And there's their names, right? And you see these people that say, oh, welcome to our little group, right? Here's another example of where somebody was getting ready to put up Christmas decorations at the end of the year. Who do you have that will help me? And here came the responses from other people. Here's another one, Tony Isa, one of my clients in Indiana. He's got the Isa connection. Every Monday, he does a little giveaway. It's not a big deal. He has a drawing, right? But if you're one of Tony's people, this is a pretty cool deal, right? He also did an event a few weeks ago. They rented out an ice skating rink, and he had drawings and prizes, and it was just a giant thank you for his people. Please start a closed Facebook group. It's so many realtors are members of these business networking groups, these BNI groups. I had this thought a few years ago. It's like, why don't you just start your own BNI group and leverage Facebook as a way to do that? Why don't you control your BNI group? Why don't we let other suppliers come in, and if you're one of my guys, promote your business internally, right? I mean, ultimately, that anything you're thinking about real estate, you just let's go to the Facebook group. It's the game that the giant third-party corporations are playing on small business, and this is my way of, I think, that we could get in there and do this. The bottom line is this. I've gone over, but not by a whole lot. Guys, the marketplace is going to require you to become elite. It's going to require you to have the same mindset as the elite athlete. That's more practice so that you're more effective in the field. Then once you've done a transaction with someone where you were good, you were nice, stay in flow with them, more so than you ever have. When you do that, your business will scale. Every person on here has the ability to scale their business regardless of market. You have the ability to become bulletproof. You have to do these things, guys. We didn't have to do them before. I sold in a world where you didn't have to do this. It was all about personal promotion back in the day. Just be a name. People will call you. Now for the consumer, they don't know who the names are, right? They don't know who the names are. As a brand new agent, you can get a position on Google by doing the proper things, by getting reviews to keep your name up in front of people, whether you've sold a ton of property or not. In the old model, you had to have a bunch of listings and print ads. That's gone. You've got to become elite. All of these people that I've got pictures of, and I could fill the slides up with many more. If you study their lives, they were really good at a couple of things. They doubled down on a couple of things. They didn't dabble, right? That's where we are as small business people today. Specifically, if you're a real estate agent today, this is where it is. It's filtering its way out for me into other businesses. But for real estate, which that's 99.9% of what I do, guys, we got to become elite. You got to have your lane. You got to understand what your lane is. You got to know every subtle nuance of it. I try to do the same thing in my business. I have people call me, could you do this? Nah, it's not really my deal. Right? You need to call so-and-so for that. We need to stay right here in our lane. Become elite once and for all. And the world just opens up to you when you get incredibly focused and you stay in a very narrow path. Now, on April the 19th, in 2 weeks, we're going to go back down the road of buyer presentations again. Let me tell you why. If you've been watching the news, you saw, or at least real estate news, right? You saw that the Moral lawsuit last week was granted class action status. That is the biggest of these NAR lawsuits, okay? The essence of these lawsuits and why buyer presentation is so important, the essence of these lawsuits is that it is unfair for a seller to pay a real estate agent a fee when the real estate agent actually represents the buyer, not the seller. This has been referred to by RIS Media as the haymaker for real estate. All right, guys, we have got to fortify and crush buyer presentations moving forward. I want you to start now. So knowing that buyer presentations have always been a huge issue, I've written a new buyer presentation that I want to share with you that any of you can go use. So that's what we're going to start into on the 19th. I'm trying to get ahead of this lawsuit. This thing is supposed to go to court. At least one of them, there's 3 of them out there. At least one of them is supposed to go to court for the end of this year. And I want anyone that I engage with to be prepared, because I do think something is going to change out of this deal. All right? Something is going to change. And I want to make sure that again, the people that I deal with and I'm around, that we're prepared for this. Okay. I know I went a little bit over. As always, I apologize. Thank you so much. WayneFrederick.com. Maddie, I'll open it up for questions if we have any. Thank you all for your time. You're the best. I really appreciate you.
As always, if you guys have a question, you're welcome to enter it in the chat, or if you'd like to ask the question yourself, you're more than welcome to raise your hand and we'd be happy to give you permission to speak.
No questions. Oh,
We've
here
got one
comes one.
coming in the Q&A. Oh, just a great job. Someone says, what was the law?
What was what?
What was the law from the lawsuit, I guess?
I need more clarity. What was the law?
Maybe what's the law in question that they're saying that they're breaking in the class action?
So a lot of the language deals with the clear cooperation agreement in residential real estate. This is a residential deal. So they filed this lawsuit against the National Association of Realtors and all of the major brands, which obviously tells you they're going where they think money is. It deals with the fact that in their eyes, real estate commissions are artificially inflated because sellers are told they have to offer a fee to a buyer's agent. And that buyers should have to pay their agent themselves rather than the seller having to pay a buyer's agent. That's the essence of the lawsuit. And it's going, and I've seen the lawsuit. One of the lawsuits, one of the smaller class actions was filed in Missouri. I've actually seen it. I've read it. It's got some pretty damning stuff in it, to be really frank about it. But that's the essence of the lawsuit. I do want to say one more thing. If anyone wants more information, because I went through it pretty quickly just in the interest of time, on the 4 events and that event model, fire me an email, wayne@stfconsult.com, and I will I'll tell you a little bit more about exactly what happened in that deal.
We have a question.
Mandy, we have another question? Okay.
We do have another question. Well, one, the person who asked about the lawsuit just said that they appreciated it and would love to have some more information about it. Our next question says, what's the main advice that you'd like us to take away from this webinar, especially for a new agent?
Spend as much time practicing if you're a brand new agent, spend as much time practicing as you are out in the field so we can build your confidence up. And the cornerstone for every real estate agent's business is the people that we already know. So if you're a brand new agent to the industry, one of my questions to you is going to be, how many people do you already know? And we're going to start there, and then we're going to add in the other two ways that you can generate business and come up with a model that you can implement and then get you to trust the model. Fortifying personal relationships is such a huge deal for small business people. And you're a small business person if you're in the real estate business. That's what I want you to take away from this.
Awesome.
Any other questions?
I think that's it.
Okay. And we will give you, in the information that comes out to the broker hosts on Friday, we'll give you the templates again for buyer packets and listing packets. We'll give you the questionnaires and all that stuff. And as always, guys, I mean, if you have any questions between now and the next Wednesdays with Wayne, there's my email address. Send me a question. I have no problem with between Maddie and I answering your questions. You could also send something to admin@stfconsult.com. All right, guys, appreciate you. Thank you very much for your time. We will see you in 2 weeks. Have a great day. Bye-bye.